Welcome back to another episode of Out Loud Geek, where we discuss news and views about pop culture, science fiction, fantasy, food, cooking, the outdoors, and more. It's time, once again, for another depressing dose of dismal Disney. After only a single season on Disney Plus that only started at the end of November and ended 2 months ago in January, LucasFilm's Willow series has been cancelled. Oh, poor little Kathleen Kennedy, how heartbreaking. It was just over 2 years ago, back in October 2020, when the Willow series had reportedly been given a green light at Disney Plus. At the time, Kathleen Kennedy had said, "This is an exciting new era for storytelling at Lucasfilm. John Chu's vision, coupled with the writing of John Kasdan and Wendy Mericle, is going to take Willow into new and exciting directions for the series. Reuniting Ron Howard and Warwick Davis in the world of Willow is something that we've both wanted to do for some time, and I couldn't be more proud of the incredible team we've put together to bring the series to Disney Plus." And now that team's failure is for all the world to see, as the journey of Willow will not be continuing on Disney Plus 2 months after its first and only 8-episode season concluded its run. The now cancelled Lucasfilm series was supposed to be a sequel to the 1988 movie of the same name. Naturally, Disney Plus doesn't provide viewing data for its programming because they don't want the public to know just how much of a failure it truly is. But Willow didn't break into the Nielsen Top 10 rankings of streaming titles during its run. But the series had earned mostly positive reviews from paid critics because of how woke the series was, and since the critics don't want to screw up their lucrative relationships with Disney. Though there are a few critics who are honest and more forthcoming. Willow's cancellation comes during a transition period for both Lucasfilm, which is reconsidering the output of its signature Star Wars franchise, and Disney's streaming operations. Like other companies, Disney is pulling back on the lavish spending on streaming content, which is part of what Bob Iger talked about at the beginning of February when he announced 7,000 layoffs and a reduction in $5.5 billion in spending, of which $3 billion is being pulled from productions. I had talked about Iger's announcement in a video that I released on February 11th entitled, "Bob Iger to cut 7,000 Disney jobs and cut $3 billion for new content. Bad for Disney Plus." Warwick Davis had reprised his role from the 1988 Ron Howard directed film in the series, but fortunately Val Kilmer didn't waste his time on it. The showrunners were Jonathan Kasdan, who penned the pilot episode, and Wendy Mericle. They had also executive produced the show with Ron Howard, the 1988 film's writer Bob Dolman, who had penned the original screenplay with George Lucas, Lucasfilm head Kathleen Kennedy, and her co-mistress of female-empowered wokeness, Michelle Rejwan, who is the senior vice president of live-action development and production for Lucasfilm. The cancellation also comes amid increased scrutiny at media companies, including Disney, which have been curbing streaming content spending in search of profitability. You mean Disney Plus isn't profitable? Who could have guessed that? Willow introduced new characters and was set in a world where brownies, sorcerers, trolls, and other mythical creatures flourish. An unlikely group of heroes set off on a dangerous quest to places far beyond their home, where they must face their inner demons and come together to save their world. Gee, how many other franchises does that sound like? Especially ones that are far better. To add some perspective as to why Willow was cancelled, I'll share a few words from an honest critical review that was written about the show in late December and was entitled, "Willow is an Abomination." I just love that title. I'm sorry to report, but Willow, the Disney Plus TV sequel series to the 1988 film of the same name, is an abomination. It's neck and neck with Rings of Power, She-Hulk, and Fear the Walking Dead for my worst TV show of 2022 award. I hope you don't mind if I laugh from time to time because this review is really good. I was so looking forward to this show. It's something I've dreamed of, a sequel movie or show since I was a kid. Willow is one of my all-time favorite movies. But whatever this is, this awful, badly written, poorly acted, cheap imitation is not Willow. Even Warwick Davis seems to have lost his spark. And that's not a good sign, is it? I tried. I really did try to give this show the benefit of the doubt. Even though the opening episodes were crimson with red flags, I wanted to believe. I wanted to focus on the positive and did that as much as possible in my review of the first 2 episodes. But by episode 3, my patience was at its limits. I didn't even bother to review episode 4 as I very nearly had given up entirely. So what this review is saying is that the show started out bad, then it just became progressively worse with each new episode. And here's where we start to get into the nitty-gritty. Willow on Disney Plus felt more like a teenage young adult drama than an epic fantasy. Cheap costumes, deeply cringe-inducing dialogue between characters who may as well have been living in LA in 2022, and a terrible plot all combined to make this show almost unwatchable. And I know all about unwatchable as I've done videos about unwatchable movies and I'm currently planning to do a 3rd one. Toss in modern rock music, which was played not just in the end credits, but also over 2 different scenes instead of the gorgeous, memorable James Horner score, and I'm not sure if I'm angry, sad, or just confused. The tone is the biggest problem. And I'm just going to interject this here. Any sequel that fails to capture an original work's tone has already failed. I could overlook the bad costumes and the lackluster story if it just felt like the Willow of old. People who defend the show point out that the movie was also often funny and didn't take itself too seriously, but that misses the point. The movie's tone was balanced. The darkness of the story, about a demon queen doing bad things to avoid a prophecy, is balanced against humor, courage, and friendship. This show is just cheesy. In the Willow TV show, the tone is rarely endearing. The humor is not so much comic relief, but rather endless glibness, a parade of lazy one-liners that may as well be knockoff MCU dialogue, and none of the jokes land. The show is trying so hard to be clever that it's forgotten that Willow is also about being courageous. I'll point out here that today's Hollywood writers aren't interested in telling good stories. They're only interested in clicking off woke checkmarks. It's so obsessed with being a CW young adult romance that it forgets the movie was mostly about camaraderie. Willow had the CW written all over it. And where's the CW today? Most of its shows were canceled, and Nexstar was paid $54 million to take it off the hands of the networks that had previously owned it. As I had spoken about in my video entitled, "The CW has never been profitable," Nexstar was paid to take it from Paramount and Warner Brothers. Overly dramatic teen romances plagued by lies and deception. Cringy dialogue that makes you want to punch something. Flat wooden characters who all sound the same. Cheap costumes and cinematography. No sense of scope or scale. Terrible pacing, terrible melodrama. Disappointing titular character. I hate it, and I hate that we keep putting people in charge of these adaptations, reboots, and sequels who clearly have no idea what they're doing. I think you can see now why I love this critique. He hit everything that was wrong with this show, and it perfectly explains why people didn't watch it or gave up watching it, because the people who did want to watch the show wanted to see a continuation of the same characters and feel that the original 1988 movie had. Unfortunately, that's not possible in today's overly woke Hollywood that has placed storytelling and consistency into the back seat or left it out on the side of the road. Today's Hollywood writers only want to please each other. They aren't interested in pleasing a very diverse audience that wants to be entertained and not preached to or sermonized to. It's also sad because Warwick Davis had wanted to see a revival of Willow for many years, and now all of his efforts to achieve that have been effectively flushed down the proverbial toilet. And ultimately, the person who should be held accountable for this complete failure of a show is the same person who's in charge of Lucasfilm and who was also one of the show's executive producers, Kathleen Kennedy, who's already pretty much destroyed one franchise and now she has succeeded in destroying another. Thanks for watching today, and a huge thanks to everyone who has subscribed to our channel. We appreciate your support. If you enjoyed this video, please press the like button, and please feel free to share a comment. If you'd like to see more of our videos in the future and help support this channel, please press the red subscribe button, and please press the bell to receive notifications for new content. You can also find us on Facebook and Twitter by clicking on the links in the description. Until next time, this is Out Loud Geek.